Yo, what up, y'all? It's your boy Rob coming back at you once again with another video. So before we get started, you already know what to do. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice. Smash the like button, share this video out to all of your followers, and let's get it cracking, all right? So I find this fascinating, right? Because this is something that's extremely disingenuous, extremely dishonest, and extremely intellectually unethical, in my opinion. All right, the United States government, the progenitor of the people who created the concepts of both race and ethnicity, and not only who created the concepts of race and ethnicity, but the people who have capitalized immensely from corrupting those concepts, is now asking the question, what do they mean? So before we get started into the content of this article from Associated Press, I want to ask you guys in the comment section, and please make sure that you leave detailed explanations. What do race and ethnicity mean? Now, here's my question for you. Why would the AP be dropping an article about this, asking the question about concepts that we already are very clear on what the definitions and what the answers to these questions are? If you ask me, I think that the United States government is a little bit upset. I think that they're extremely angry. And one of the things that I think that they're angry about is the fact that they were outsmarted by ADOS, FBA, and freedmen in terms of going after reparations based on lineage, because now you can't say that lineage is quote unquote race based, despite the fact that many people who are opposed to the idea of reparations for slavery feel that they're race based. They can feel whatever they want. If they're based on people who are direct descendants of slavery, well, that means that they're lineage based on the lineage of who it was in your family that was enslaved in the American chattel slavery system. All right. If you ask me, more things than just reparations should be given. Cash reparations is not the only thing. Cash reparations should be mandatory, but also all entities and all private individuals and businesses, as well as government businesses and agencies in the United States who did any kind of commerce with slaves, slave trading, or businesses associated with slave trading, need to give all records, all the records of all the interactions that they ever had with any kind of slave, whether it's cargo handling, whether it's ownership, whether it's life insurance payout. They need to give all of that documentation and information to the direct descendants of the slaves, in addition to the cash payout. And the reason why is so that we can be aware of who the families of Adosos are in the United States, as well as continue to go after them for more claims in addition to things beyond slavery. All right. So now here it starts off by saying, what do race and ethnicity mean? And again, I asked you guys to let me know what you all think as far as your definitions of those things. The U.S. government is asking. Naheem Way is weary of people conflating African American and black. Shalini Parekh wants a way for South Asian people to identify themselves differently than East Asians with roots in places like China or Japan. And Byron Haskins wants the U.S. to toss racial and ethnic labels altogether. When you set up categories that are used to place people into boxes, sometimes you miss the truth of them, said Haskins, who describes himself as African American. Now, I find that fascinating. Out of all the black people, they found the one black person that wants to get rid of his racial identity. That's interesting. Way, Parekh, and Haskins' voices are among more than 4,600 comments pending before the Biden administration as it contemplates updating the nation's racial and ethnic categories for the first time since 1997. There's a lot to consider. Some Black Americans want their ancestors' enslavement to be recognized in how they are identified. Some Jays believe their identity should be seen as its own ethnic category and not only as a religion. I disagree with that 100%, and I think people need to completely and 110% push back against that. The idea of revising categories for ethnic and racial identities, both in the census and in gathering demographic information between headcounts, have fueled editorials and think tank essays. Now, let me ask you guys a question. Where are our think tank essays about the things that we want? If you guys know of any, make sure you leave the links for them in the comment section. If you don't know of any, just simply type in, I haven't read any think tank essays about our categorization, as well as thousands of written comments by individuals in what is almost a Rorschach test for how Americans identify themselves. And let's not even go into the rabbit hole of talking about the dynamics that LGBTQ adds to that. The White House's Office of Management and Budget is set to decide on new classifications next year and is hosting 3 virtual town halls on the subject this week. Some conservatives question the process itself, despite the fact that conservatives in California petitioned for themselves to be considered their own ethnic group in California, saying that the overreaching premise that Americans need more ethnic categories will only accelerate balkanization, which, find it fascinating, balkanization is the process that the United States used to create division and chaos among the Eastern Bloc countries to break them away from the Soviet Union. Notice how every evil tactic of divide and conquer damn near goes back to a tactic that the United States used against some other group of people. You know what I'm saying? By creating and deepening sub-national identities, the government further contributes to the decline of one national American identity. There's never been one American national identity. So I don't know how that can decline, wrote Mike Gonzalez, who this guy, now it makes sense because this guy is not a guy that's native to the United States with that last name, a senior fellow at the Heritage Foundation, in his personal comment posted on the OMB webpage seeking public input. That view contrasts sharply with those who say previous categories have overlooked nuances. This is certainly a singular moment and opportunity to greatly improve and enhance the accuracy and completeness of the data, Mario Beavides, Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs for the NALEO Education Fund, said during a recent forum. The proposed changes would create a new category for people of Middle Eastern and North African descent, also known by the acronym MENA, who are now classified as white, but say they have been routinely undercounted. Okay, so again, just to make sure that we're clear on this, Middle Eastern people and North Africans are now and always have been classified as white. So when people were having that debate about the Boulder, Colorado mass shooter, and all of these white people were making these videos talking about, oh, see, the verdict is out. When everybody thought it was a white guy, it was a Syrian guy. Syria is in the Middle East. Middle Easterners and North Africans are classified as white, and they have been since Dow versus the United States. The process also would combine the race and ethnic origin questions into a single query, because some advocates say the current method of asking about race and separately about ethnic origin often confuses quote-unquote Hispanic respondents. Now, here's my question. These Hispanic people are people who, by their own culture, have kind of somewhat eliminated race at their own, devices, and have chosen to place the most emphasis on their national identity. And the darker skinned Latino people do that in attempts to get away from their African roots. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing confusing about it. The only thing that's confusing about it is how Hispanics can get the most whiteness out of their identity. That's the thing that they're confused about, not the boxes on the application. With the revisions, the government would try to get more detailed answer on race and ethnicity by asking about country of origin. Another proposal recommends striking from federal government forms the word Negro and Far East, now widely regarded as pejorative. The terms majority and minority would also be dropped because some officials say they fail to reflect the nation's complex racial and ethnic diversity. Not to mention, we need to get rid of that because the people who have been the majority and have benefited the most from being the majority are slowly shrinking to be the minority. Several Black Americans like Way, whose ancestors were enslaved, said in public comments to the OMB that they would like to be identified in a category such as American freedmen, which is actually the original governmental categorization of post-slavery Black people in the United States, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me or verify that in the comment section. Foundational Black Americans or American descendants of slavery to distinguish themselves from Black immigrants or even white individuals born in Africa, which white people born in Africa are not African, they're Europeans, you know what I'm saying, as well as reflecting their ancestors' history in the United States. Way, who is the president of United Sons and Daughters of Freemen, which describes itself as dedicated to restoring the broken promises from Reconstruction, also recommended substituting the word population group for race. Conflating African American with Black has blurred what it means to be an African American in this country. Way, who works for a pharmaceutical group in Athens, Georgia, said in a telephone interview. Haskins, a retired government worker from Lansing, Michigan, suggested eliminating race categories like white and Black since they perpetuate deeply rooted and unjust social political constructs. I don't understand why Black needs to deal with that at all. We didn't contribute to any of those social political constructs that created race-based imbalances. So we shouldn't have to do anything by how we identify ourselves to repair any of that. And as a matter of fact, we don't owe anybody anything or even a finger or a hand in helping to fix that because we didn't cause those problems. Instead, he said people should be able to self-identify as they wish. So now we're going down the lines of the logic that's being used to allow men to go into women's bathrooms. When his sociologist daughter points out the difficulty of aggregating such data into something useful to address inequalities in housing or voting or tailoring health or education programs to the needs of communities, he tells her, go crazy at it. That's what you're being paid for. You need to search for the truth and not just stay with the old categories because someone decided that is what we decided, Haskins said. Pirkish is asking the governments to distinguish South Asians from East Asians. When these groups are assessed together, one loses a lot of important granularity that can help differentiate issues that are specific to one group and not the other, Parikh said. The Mena community appears to be having a related problem based on several comments to OMB. And the reason why all these people are having all these comments is because, let's not get it twisted, at the root of all of this is basically white people telling other people who and what they are and putting them into categories that are comfortable and palatable to white people and not actually accommodating for or considering the racial dynamics or the cultural dynamics of these individual groups. This is just people being cataloged for white people's convenience. You know what I'm saying? The Mena community appears to be having a related problem based on several comments to the OMB. Without its own category, the group's political power is diluted. That's important right there. Now you see what the Mena community is saying? That right there is something that people should take note of and pay attention, because that's one of the things that goes on with us. And if you guys agree with that, give me a thumbs up in the comment section. If you guys disagree, give me a thumbs down. People could benefit from cohesive representation, especially if their identities were taken into account in drawing political districts, advocates said, which is something that you see going on in New York, California, and Illinois, and Chicago. You know what I'm saying? It comes down to something even more personal for Minorj, who described herself to the Biden administration as a 73-year-old Arab American woman. When I go to the doctor's office, I do not feel they have the information necessary to understand my medical history or my culture, she said. For all these reasons, I want to be counted as who I am, not as white, which I find fascinating because white is who you are. You know what I'm saying? But okay. Jordan Steiner said ethnic categories should be expanded to include not only Mena, but other groups like Jays, who often regard themselves not only as members of religious groups, but as an ethnic one too. Jessica Aksoy commented the proposals to expand the categories, saying that she often felt limited about which boxes to check as someone of Turkish, European, and J heritage. Very easy. White. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not something challenging. Recognizing our differences and honoring and celebrating the rich melting pot of America, Aksoy said, the face of America is changing, and this initiative is for progress in recognizing that. All right. So there's a lot of dishonesty coming from these white people of color groups, these white minority groups. These are all European people, all white people who are being divided into these little subcategories so that they can have the argument, well, we're immigrants, we're minorities, we're marginalized groups, and we did everything. So black people who are descendants of slaves should be able to do the same things as us. You know what I'm saying? And this is just help from the United States government in fostering derangement of internal politics and further confusion when it comes to these particular narratives. These people benefited from the privilege of white skin. You know what I'm saying? These people benefited from the privilege of checking the white box on the check marks. The only reason why they want to have these other classifications is because they want to be able to not only be identified visibly as white, but on paper be identified as minorities so that they can reap a lot of the Democrat policies that the United States puts into place. Not so much to build any kind of coalition, because let's not get it twisted. All of these minority groups benefit from anti-black racism in WS, and all of those groups are also very abrasive and hostile towards black people. So they're not doing that to delineate themselves from white society to form any kind of coalition. So this kind of confusion, you'll see more think pieces and more think tank pieces about this. And this is just a soft attack on FBA, ADOS, and freedmen. And it's a soft attack and attempt to confuse the reparations conversation. So just be aware of this kind of stuff. Make sure that you understand all of these concepts 100%. Let me know what you think about this article in the comment section. I'll have it linked in the description box so you can go back and check it out if you don't want to watch the whole video, or the video commentary isn't if it doesn't give enough explanation. Make sure you leave your heartfelt opinion in the comment section, because I'm very interested to see what people think about this. Please make sure you guys share the video. If you're not subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit the bell icon twice, smash the like button, follow the backup channels, watch the video all the way through to the end, hit the links at the end of the video, and I will catch you all on the next one. All right, peace.